Welcome to Monster Monday. So, we are going to be talking about the new scary stories to tell in the dark. This was co-written by Guillermo del Toro, which is pretty damn cool. The screen story by him, Patrick Melton, and Marcus Dunstan, who are two of my favorite writers in the horror genre. Of course, they worked on Feast 1, 2, and 3, the Feast trilogy, should I say, Saw 4 through 7, the Piranha movies, they did the Collector movie. They've done a whole bunch of shit. They were actually supposed to do a Halloween movie called Halloween Returns, I think that's what that was called, that I really wanted to see, and I honestly would have preferred it to Halloween 2018, maybe, but we'll never know. Anyway, so yeah, this is a movie I saw in the theater early because of the horror show. They invited me, so I got to see this early. And when I went to see it, I was really, really tired. I'm sure I mentioned this in my review. I don't know. I haven't watched the review in a while. This movie came out, a year or two ago? I don't remember how long now. But anyway, I went and I was super tired. I fell asleep at certain points in the movie. And that wasn't really because of the movie, but at the time I was thinking maybe it was because of the movie. Because it wasn't huge on this when I left. And then it was on Black Friday for $7 on Blu-ray. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this another chance. I'm gonna buy it, and one of these nights I'll throw it back on. And I needed a Monster Monday, so here we go. We got a bunch of monsters in this movie. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about the books all that much. I just remember the drawings as a kid. I think we all do. Some of the greatest artwork in horror history. For some reason, those images are burned into our memories, and they genuinely are creepy as fuck, and they're for children, which is hilarious. So the books are what the books are. But now Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark comes around, and we're all like, holy shit, okay, how's this gonna play out? Because they're books for kids, but they're also supposed to be like pretty damn scary from the memory of the pictures. So like, and the main audience for this is probably going to be the kids who grew up watching it or reading it, which would probably be someone in their 30s, like myself. So I feel like that was kind of a juggling act of sorts. Of it was like, well, this is a kid's book, but we're trying to appeal to adults. So I feel like PG-13 made sense here, right? Like, I'm not going to say that very often, but I feel like that middle ground was really the only way to go about this because of the source material and because of the target audience. Since the target audience is older now and the source material's for younger, PG-13 just made sense, right? And there's nothing in this movie that really warrants an R rating. Now, could they have written it differently to have an R rating? Of course. But I don't know. The thing that really, really works about this film more than anything, and this is mostly due to Del Toro's involvement, is the creature design and execution is excellent. Now, there are some CG elements here on, the dude who breaks apart into pieces and he puts himself together. I mean, there's that, and then there's the fat chick in the hall. She's fairly CG, but honestly, none of that bothers me. I quite like all of it. Like, I can see the practical purists being like, oh, this looks like shit, this and that. But the way they wanted to do this, with the guy breaking apart and, like, reforming back together and running and moving around like that, the CG really was about the only option on that, if you really want to show it how it was shown. Now, could you make different choices and show it in practical ways? Sure. But that's not the way they wanted to show it, and so they went with the CG. And I think the CG is good enough that I don't ever really feel bothered by it much. Like, yes, I know I'm looking at CG, but I've just accepted it at this point, unless it looks egregiously awful. then I'm going to step back and be like, all right, now you're just taking me out of the movie. But with this, I think it's good enough. I think the lighting and all of that is well enough that it doesn't bother me at all. But the creature design in this is great. And I will say on this second viewing that I liked it quite a bit more, and is something that, I think is a pretty cool, holiday horror flick. Like, this is something to throw on around Halloween. I think this has a very good Halloween feel to it. The aesthetics of this film, the cinematography, this Blu-ray transfer, everything is fucking fantastic. This film looks gorgeous. This is a fantastic looking movie. If nothing else, aesthetically, this movie is fucking gorgeous. Seriously. So I give it major props for that. And then it's got all of the really cool looking creature effects that were, overseen by Guillermo del Toro. Movie's got a lot going for it. And I really like the characters too. So I have to say, I quite enjoyed this time. And I actually, believe it or not, I actually watched this because my kids wouldn't go to bed. And they were like, let us stay up with you. And they were like, and I was like, girls, I'm watching a movie. You can't. And I was like, well, it's PG-13. I don't know. I'm like, well, don't, if you get scared, look away, go to sleep. They fucking watched this whole thing with me. My 7-year-olds. Now, some people could look at that and be like, well, then it didn't succeed. If it's not scaring 7-year-olds, then, it's a pussy-ass film, and this isn't that. But on the other hand, A, my daughters could just be fucking madmen who are, like, unscarable, which at this point I'm starting to wonder. Or B, they kind of hit that sweet spot where I'm sitting there and I'm enjoying it, and they were sitting there and they were kind of enjoying it. So they're really kind of knocking out all the different demographics because it's supposed to be catering to a multitude of different demographics, as I said. So I feel like that all works. I don't know. The fact that I could show this to my kids, that it felt like a scarier Goosebumps, I feel like that's what this is. I feel like this is Goosebumps for just a little bit older of an audience. Now you're sitting there being like, well, they're 7 years old. Not really. I'm just feeling like my 7-year-olds are a little different at this point. I think because they're around me and my horror all the time that they've become so desensitized to it. Now, normally I don't let them watch anything with me. But I showed them all 4 Poltergeist films not too long ago, and they were unfazed completely by all 4 of them. And they were just like, yeah, those were fine. Those are fun. I liked them. They liked them. They actually sat there and watched all 4 of them with me. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, but I can say that I think the character development in this is really damn good with the main girl here. The stuff they do with her mother, her father, I think all that stuff is actually great. Like, the way this plays in and how it develops her as a character, I think is excellent. Like, now, does it do much for the story? Not really. Is it like a driving force for how she handles the situation? No. But it does make her a very relatable character. Especially for myself. Because my father was left by his mother when he was 5. He says the last memory he has of her in his life was chasing her down the walkway as she was walking to the car to get into the car with the man that she ran off with. The town preacher, keep in mind. But he followed her down and was like screaming, please don't go, mommy. And she got in the car and she drove off, and he never ever saw her again. 5 years old. I think it was 5. It was around that age. I think it was 5. So, like, in this movie, we got this girl whose mom just up and vanished. She just left. Not because she was kidnapped, not because she was murdered, not because no, she just left. I don't want my fucking family anymore. I don't want this life anymore. And there's a scene in this where she's talking to her dad, played by Dean Norris. And she calls him just to let him know. And this is a very, very good scene. Very, very well acted and very well constructed. She calls him just to tell him, look, if I die, if I disappear, because her other friends have vanished. They're gone. There's no sign of them. So it looks like they may have run away. She calls her dad. Now, she doesn't want her dad involved because she doesn't want him to become a target for Cerebellos. But she calls him and is like, look, I'm only calling you because I want to inform you. I want to let you know because this is so important to me because I love you so much. I want you to know that I did not run away from you. I don't want you to think I was like mom. I don't want you to think that I left and you are just the cause of this. No, it is not you. You are, you're great. This is not what this is. I think that's just heartbreaking and touching and so relatable to anybody who has a fucking heart. So great performance there, great writing, really great execution, just a phenomenal scene for me. I just thought that was great. I love the idea behind calling the dad, and her only real concern, she's gonna die maybe. Her friends are gonna die. Her friends have died. Who knows what's happened? And monsters are after her. And her main concern is calling her father and being like, listen, I love you. I did not leave. I did not run away. I remember I think it was in Breaking Bad, speaking of Dean Norris, where there's a scene where is it like a lawyer or something like that? And they're going to kill her. And she's like, no, you can't make my kid think I left her. You can't do that to me. Like, you have to kill me. Do not, like, dispose of my body and make it look like I ran away on her. Like, she'll think about this for the rest of her life like I left her. This will fucking ruin her. Like, if you're going to kill me, don't kill her too. And that shit was impactful. That was brutal, man, to watch because it was so sad. It was like, Jesus Christ. Like, she's just sitting there thinking about her daughter's future, thinking about her belief that her mom left and what that would do to her mentally. That's fucking just, man, that's heavy. That's super heavy. And I feel like that's kind of like this scene. So I'm talking about one specific scene, and that's like 2 minutes long, but fuck, it was very impactful for me. So I really liked it a lot. Now, this movie is set in 1968, which is pretty cool, period piece. And one of the kids in this, the kid who's dressed like not a clown, Pierrot, this kid looks just like Jason Sudeikis to me. Like, he looks like a straight up lookalike. I had to look up. I probably said that in my spoiler free review, but I love it. I had to look it up again because I was like, is he related? He looks so much damn like him. I think the use of the season of the witch in this movie and the opening credits is fucking beautiful. Beautiful. The more I talk about this movie, the more I'm really enjoying it. I just think, yeah, the way that the music kind of plays over the events of, like, not only showing like the youth of the 60s, but also like kind of juxtaposing that against the backdrop of Vietnam and what was going on then, and that gives a lot of weight to the world of that time, and also gives us some, like, kind of an insight to Ramon, our character that we meet, who's a draft dodger, and is also being racially, profiled and ganged up on by not only the cops but bullies in town who are calling him wetback and all this shit. And the cop is a total piece of shit to him. The cop played by the dude from Shawshank Redemption. That's all I can ever see him as. But yeah, like, there's a lot of like racial tension there, and there's a lot of tension in his life because he's a draft dodger and Vietnam's going on, and then he's dealing with this shit. And these kids set up the bullies, and so these bullies chase him to this house. It's a very Goonies-esque kind of scene here, which I'm sure they're emulating in some way, because the sister's like sticking up and she gets pushed down there with him. And the bully, to me, while does do a good job at his performance, he does look psychotic, I will say that. And psychos can be scarier than Psy as an actual strength, because it doesn't take much. You can get a bat, you can get a knife, and then all of a sudden you're real strong. You stick someone with a knife, I don't care how fucking big they are, they're gonna feel it. That being said, that kid looks like a total pussy to me. But he does a good job of still making himself intimidating. I just feel like this is a kid that I'd hit once, he'd buckle and it'd be over. So I'm not really buying it. He's no Buddy Rafferty from fucking Christine or anything, but regardless, his performance is good, so that doesn't matter. And then I like the relationship between the sister and the brother in this, and how they like hate each other, but anytime they're in peril, they're like I gotta stick up for him. She's gotta stick up for her brother, or he's gotta go help her. Like, when he finds out that she's next in line, he's like immediately like almost becomes childish, and he's like, Ruthie, like he loves his sister. He just can't admit it. It's one of those relationships where they hate each other, but they secretly love each other. Good stuff there. So really, really good stuff there. The only character that isn't really developed all that much is the Jason Sudeikis looking guy who eats the big toe and gets pulled under the bed. He just kind of has a crush on his friend, and he has a crush on his buddy's sister. So he has like a crush on every chick. I can relate to that at least. But I feel like his character isn't developed much. That said, he's pulled out of the film pretty quickly. Ha ha ha. Pun there. He's pulled out of the fucking frame. Yeah, he really is. He's pulled out of the film quickly, so we don't really get to know him all that much, and I think it's a good shock. I think in movies like this, you don't expect characters like that to be killed off or taken out of the movie. Now, at the end of this movie, during the right before the end credits, the character talks about how she thinks they're able to bring them back. The book has the answers, all that. So this is definitely setting it up for a sequel, which I would 100,000,000% for sure be on board with and want to see. And I did not feel that way as much having watched it only once, but that second view did such wonders for me. That's so funny. The certified fresh thing from Rotten Tomatoes is it's fucking part of the cover. Look at that. It's part of it, man. It's not a sticker. It's literally on the fucking thing. How lame is that? That's so stupid. Like, Rotten Tomatoes probably won't even be a thing in 10 years. And I'll have this thing and I'll be like, what's this? Certified fresh? What the fuck does that even mean? You know what I mean? I mean, I'll know, but I don't know. It's on the cover. I guess that's no different than... I guess I'm full of shit, because I guess that's the same as someone putting like, awesome says, Peter Travers or whatever. So I guess that's just the new way of putting that kind of stuff on there. But I don't like any of that stuff on there anyways. I don't need to know what one word critics said about it. Anyway, I just thought that was stupid that it was just imprinted on there. It's not only did they put it on the slip cover, but they also put it on the fucking cover. It's so dumb. Anyway, so Tommy, the bully, gets turned into a scarecrow. So he's stabbed and no blood comes out, which is, this plays into the PG-13, PG type of thing, where you're appealing to a younger audience. Ow. And, he gets stabbed and you're not going to show a bunch of blood pouring out of him. So, like, he's stabbed, and then immediately straw starts coming out of him, and he starts coming out of his mouth, and then he's turned into a scarecrow. I think this is great. This plays along with the folklore tale. This definitely feels like something that would be said around a campfire. The kid's killed by a scarecrow and becomes a scarecrow. And this is brilliant. This makes perfect sense. It takes the blood out of it for the rating, but it also is smart, and it plays with the story well. And this kid who's beaten the shit out of this scarecrow and has been scared of it since he was a kid but can never admit it, he ends up becoming the thing he fears, right? That's good. It's poetic, and I dig it. She tries to get rid of the book and it comes back to her. This is something we've seen a million times. So this film isn't wholly original, but that's not important. What's important is executing properly, and I think this film does so very well. Like, this is a great, entry-level film for people wanting to get into horror to throw on around Halloween time. I think this is a perfect film for that. So I'll definitely be recommending this to people, for sure. We've got fan favorite stories like the big toe and then the big fat chick, and the spider popping in the face and all that shit. So I like that they drew inspiration from the scary stories and that they took the more famous stories, incorporated in them in here in a smart way. Like the stories are going to be coming to life. They're going to be writing themselves. Something like a Goosebumps. Yes, this is similar here, except for just a little more for adults, kind of. um, but I like, yeah, how it naturally incorporates itself into the story, and it makes sense. I think this is due to the writing of these three people who know what they're doing. Augie pulled under the bed. Good stuff. Surprise, as I said. So good on them for that. And then we get the fucking spider bite thing, which is reminiscent, of course, of Slumber Party Massacre 2. I prefer the one in Slumber Party Massacre because it's just so ridiculous. I feel bad for Ruth because Ruth is only involved purely for being a good sister to her little shit brother, who calls her ugly and is all this, kind of a piece of shit to her. And oh man, she's like mentally wrecked and she's all bit up all over her arms and her face and everything. Oh, and then at the end, she even has a huge scar across her face, and you can tell she's a girl who thinks very highly of her looks, and this would be traumatizing to her. So she's mentally traumatized, physically traumatized. This girl is poor girl, but she's strong and she's going after her brother after this. So I like Ruth. She's a good girl. And then the kid runs from the red room and ends up there anyway, of course. And then the monster's coming at him from every single direction, no matter which way he turns. And then she gives him the hug of death, which from a really big fat person, if they did hug you into their body, you might actually disappear into the folds and never be seen again. So this might not be fiction. When the girl and Ramon there get locked in the jail cell together, the of course immediate thought I had is like I'd be trying to bang her through the bars. Like that would be like a total notch on the belt kind of like thing. Not her being the notch on the belt, but the put it in the book of crazy shit that I've done. Like I've had sex in some pretty wild places, but I can't say I fucked somebody through the bars of a prison cell. No one female, anyway. Let's see. Yeah, I already talked about all that. And the body parts coming down the chimney and then assembling themselves. This is a very cool idea, and it's executed fairly well. It's just the CG that is a tad distracting, but it doesn't really bother me. I like the idea, and the execution's pretty good. I like how Ramon tells her to go to the house, and he's like, I'll distract him, go. So she runs off on foot to Sarah's house, and then he takes the car, drives around for a bit, and then he ends up at Sarah's house about a minute after our main girl gets here. I can't think of her name for some reason. But I just thought this was very funny. Like, go, I'll distract him, you do your thing. And then he just brings the thing right to the house, and they get there about the same time. Now she enters like a different dimension. Well, it's kind of like it's like a different dimension, but also back in time. I don't know. Whatever's happening here, he can hear her, she can hear him. She drops her glasses, he finds her glasses. They've aged, considerably. Since she's been in that world, so she's kind of there, kind of not. This is kind of cool. I like this idea. I like that they're both in the same place at the same time. They can kind of hear each other and all that. That's great stuff, man. She's like back in time, but she's kind of still there. She's like echoes of the past and whatnot. That's yeah, I dig that. There's a lot of cool stuff in this movie, for sure. And then she tells Sarah like, hey, look, I'm gonna tell your stories. Don't worry. And Sarah kind of like vanishes, I guess. And then she becomes the new Sarah, essentially. She starts writing these stories. And then Ramon goes off to the real horror that is war, or Vietnam in this case. So this poor fucking kid can't catch a break. He tries to escape Vietnam, gets caught up in this shit, and then has to go to Vietnam anyway, even though he lived through this insanity. And now he's going to get over there, and he's going to be like, you thought Sarah Bellows was bad? You think what I went through was bad? Fuck. I have you haven't seen Bad. And then yeah, we get the promise of a sequel. Hopefully that happens with the dad, the sis, and our main girl here going off to try to find their two friends who have been taken. And yeah, good stuff, man. Now, are those friends dead? Will we get the sequel? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do I think they're dead? No, not the way they left the story. Jesus Christ, man. That's what happens when you review. Do it, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I do hope they make this sequel. I very much look forward to it. Because it's still so new, I think that that's nowhere near out of the question. In fact, I think this is still slated to happen or is still in pre-production or whatnot. I'm going to look it up after. I'm hoping that I'm going to look on IMDb and it's just going to straight up say filming. That would be awesome. I don't know if it's been greenlit to that extent. But honestly, I mean, if I had it my way, I think I would have just ended this on her friends are dead, and she, told Sarah's story, and this is it. That we're finished here. Like, that's end of story. But, they did it this way, and that's fine. If I just don't want the sequel to take away the impact of this one by bringing those characters back, and it's almost like that comic book thing where it's like characters are dead. Well, psych, no, they're not, and it's like, well, after a while, that starts to take away the impact of people's deaths. When someone dies again in the future, you're gonna be like, yeah, but they could probably be back in 2 episodes, 2 movies, whatever. We'll see. We'll see how it's handled. But for now, a cool, entry level film that's got great cinematography, great use of music, good acting, great characters, cool creature designs, all that shit. So this is a solid movie. I did not give it its praise enough, and I'm glad that I've changed my tune on it, and I'm glad I own the Blu-ray. So if you haven't checked it out, it's still like $7.50 for the Blu-ray. So definitely do so if you like those more not kid friendly, because it's darker than kid friendly. I don't want you to think because my 7-year-olds watched it that it's like some super light film. It's not. It's a darker Goosebumps. It is, but it's not like full blown R-rated, obviously. So let me know if you haven't seen it and you're gonna watch it, or let me know what you think of it having seen it, and I'll see you in the comments. Adios.